today I'm going to take you to a special place in Ontario called Kakabeka Falls Provincial Park. So we will pretend that this is in the Parks Nature Centre, and I will do a short 2 to 3 minute presentation for you in hopes that you can see some of my presentation styles, and I will try to throw in a little bit of interaction as well with a pretend public. So that's setting the stage. Kakabeka Falls in a nutshell had over 300,000 visitors to the park, but most of them, the average length of stay was 20 minutes because Kakabeka, as you may already know, is located along the 1117. Most people would just pull off, jump out of their vehicles, pay their $2 some of the time, and then head on down, see the falls, and leave. It was also a challenge for us to get them to come around the falls to the visitor center, which was on the opposite side. So this is the presentation that I developed as an impromptu during the off-season while I was on my own in the nature center and unable to leave, but I had a number of visitors coming in each day. So welcome to Kakabeka Falls Provincial Park. My name is Tamara van Dyk, and I'm the Natural Heritage Education Leader here. And I think I have one of the best jobs ever because I get to talk about wonderful natural features of Ontario parks, and specifically the Niagara the North, the second highest waterfall in Ontario. Hello and welcome to Kakabeka Falls Provincial Park. My name is Tamara and I'm the Chief Park Naturalist, now known as the Natural Heritage Education Leader. My job is probably one of the best jobs in the world. I get the chance to share all of the secrets about the natural heritage education as well as geology and all other cool facts and all about the animals that live here at the park with you, the visitors, and the people that come to our park. So today I'm going to take a few minutes of your time if you like. We can move over to the window and take a look at the waterfall, and I'll explain some of the rocks and some of the features that you're seeing so that you can better understand when you leave here today some of the cool things about the second highest waterfall in Ontario. Okay, now that we all have a good view from this window looking at Kakabeka Falls from here, I'd like to tell you that the falls are hundreds of thousands of years old. These falls were formed at the bottom of an ancient glacial lake. The rocks that are in Kakabeka Falls are known as sedimentary rocks, which tend to be a softer rock in comparison to others. They were formed by dead plant matter, dead animal matter, and silts and sands that settled to the bottom of these ancient lakes. Then as the lakes dried and with heat and pressure created these layers of rocks that were originally formed at the bottom of the ancient lake. So if you take time, take a look over. I'd like to point out that there are a couple of different layers, and I'm going to be talking about some of these rocks. So we have the first top layer, which is about 1 foot to 2 feet of a very special rock that I'll talk about first. And then secondly, the main body of the falls. We're going to talk about that. And then I'm going to send you on a scavenger hunt at the end and find a really cool layer of rock out there. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about the cap rock, or the hardest part of Kakabeka Falls. So when you look over here at the falls, you're going to see the very top layer. You may notice that it's about 1.5 to 2 feet thick. So when you look at it, it's very solid, very hard looking. Thanks to this cap rock, it keeps the waterfall from eroding too quickly and basically becoming Kakabeka Rapids. Well, I have a couple of samples here that I can pass around for you. This is a little example of the cap rock. The official name of it is iron chert. And when you look at this, when I give this to you, you'll see that there are some rusty parts to it. Well, this is where the iron in this rock is actually rusting. So that's why it's called iron chert. Now, another interesting, I'll pass this around as I'm talking. Another interesting thing, historically with the iron chert in this area, is as it eroded and fell and broke into pieces, they found that it was really, really hard because of that iron content. And in this area, it's really hard to find flint for flint and steel. So instead of using flint, the Aboriginal people and the voyageurs that passed through here would actually use the sharp edges of this iron chert, well, sharp being sharp for this kind of rock. It provides the perfect edge for the steel to be hit against it to cause a spark. So instead of flint and steel, we have iron chert and steel. So that can be found here. So that's the cap rock, very important part of the waterfall, keeps it from eroding too quickly. And these samples I just found around the park As I'm talking about these samples too, we just ask that if you do find them, take a look at them, but please leave them. We don't encourage anyone to take these things home with them. So that's our iron chert. I'm going to move on next to slate. So the rest of the falls, as you may have noticed, are very flaky looking, and that is made up of slates and shales. Now, Kakabeka Falls has both of these rocks, the main difference being slate is harder and shales tend to be a little bit softer. And they do vary. You can hit a really strong layer of shale or slate and then you'll have shale surrounding it. But this is why we recommend nobody climbs the falls, because it tends to flake away. And believe it or not, we do have people trying to climb the falls. So I do have a nice piece of slate here, and I've got a couple of samples I can pass around so you can look at these while I'm talking. You'll notice that they're very flat and very hard as well. They're not as hard as the iron chert, but they still are hard and flat. And the nice thing about these is these are actually used in some things that we commonly see or hear about each day. Anybody know what slate is used for?
Pool tables.
Yes, it's actually found on pool tables because it makes such a nice smooth surface. They also make great patio stones. So slate and shale is the other part of the waterfall, and due to the fact that they erode so quickly, we still have cap rock to thank for protecting these slates and shales from eroding and washing away. And really, without the cap rock, it would be like one great big rapids rather than Kakabeka Falls. Okay, so now that you've learned a little bit more about iron chert and the slates that make up Kakabeka Falls, that is your crash course in the geology of the falls. Now, first I have a scavenger hunt for you. Once you leave the Nature Center today, I'd like you to go down to the viewing pod and take a look at the bottom half of the far wall. You'll notice that there's a yellowish gray tint to one of the layers, and this is known as volcanic tuff. And this tells geologists and tells us that there was a large amount of volcanic activity at one time, and it was captured in the silts and sands in the sediments of the ancient lake. So go take a look at that. If you have any more questions about that, I'm going to be here. And I know we need to get some stats. It's always nice to know how tall, how wide, how big. So Kakabeka Falls is 139 feet tall, and it's 213 feet wide. So that's why it doesn't look that big, because it's wider than it is tall. Now, most people want to know why we're the second largest waterfall in Ontario, and that's because we're only 75 feet shorter than Niagara Falls. We have 4.2 cubic meters of water going over the falls per second during the week, and there's up to 8 cubic meters on the weekend, and that's because there's a power station. This waterfall actually supplies power to most of northern Ontario, as well as parts of Manitoba and parts of northern Michigan. So, if you have any more questions about those things, and the plants and animals that live here in the park, I will be here at the center all day, and feel free to come up, ask me some questions, and we've got a whole library where I can pull out some pictures. Maybe you saw a plant that you need identifying, and I can help you with that. So thank you very much for listening. Please enjoy your stay. Don't forget to take a hike. We have a short one over there. And please come back when you can stay longer.